We're proud to have received the J.D. Power Award for highest customer service among non-contract wireless providers.
Over the years, we've seen a lot of change.
We actually use change.
Luckily, there are some things we can still afford.
Like Consumer Cellular.
Stop paying too much for wireless service. Switch to Consumer Cellular. And with our 30-day risk-free guarantee, it's easy. Call 1-800-918-6057. Go online or visit a Target store today.
Look. This is the new house we just bought. This is where you play and get grass stains in all your clothes. Look, it's already worth more. High five. Thank you.
Zillow. Closed captioning brought to you by MesoBook.com.
People who have been diagnosed with mesothelioma have many questions. That's why we offer this free book.
Call toll-free at 1-800-400-5415.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has angrily denied allegations that Moscow meddled into last year's U.S. election, comparing the accusations to anti-Semitism. Listen.
They voted for him, and the other team, they made a mistake, and they don't want to recognize this mistake right now. They don't want to say that they were not wise enough. It's easy to say it's not our fault. It's the Russians. They intervened. They interfered. It's like anti-Semitism. The Jews are to blame. You're an idiot because the Jews are to blame.
So this sound with the Russian president coming just this week at this economic forum that's happening right now in St. Petersburg, and while Putin denies the Russian government interfered, for the first time, he seemed to concede that the hacks may have actually come from inside his country, although he says the government wasn't connected. But this is what he says. Hackers are free people just like artists. They would wake up, read about something going on in interstate relations, and if they feel patriotic, they may try to contribute to the fight against those who speak badly about Russia. I want to bring in Thomas Countryman, a former State Department official ousted soon after President Trump took office. Thomas, I just want to get your reaction to Putin's concession after months of saying nothing to see here. Now we hear this. Perhaps some hackers are at work inside the Russia.
Well, recall the history here. When Russian troops invaded Ukrainian territory to annex Crimea in 2014, Vladimir Putin looked right in the camera and said there are no Russian soldiers, maybe just volunteers. When Russian troops went into Syria in 2015, he said the same. There are no Russian troops, only Syrian humanitarian aid workers. Obviously, both statements were false. There may be a politician in the world who is better at looking straight into the camera and making an angry denial than Vladimir Putin, but there can't be many. And the overwhelming evidence collected by several U.S. agencies points to one inescapable conclusion, that it originated not just within Russia, but it originated at the direction of the Russian government. And the evidence there is overwhelming, no matter how Mr. Putin attempts to pick apart one tiny bit of evidence or to change the subject entirely by talking about anti-Semitism.
But did it seem like he kind of cracked the door open there to people saying this is exactly what we've been talking about? See, he just admitted Russia was involved?
It may be a tiny crack in the door, and it serves a dual purpose for him to get some credit from his own citizens as to how cleverly Russia has played this game. But you shouldn't expect that at some point in the future he will do what he did in the case of Ukraine or Syria and admit that it was a Russian state action, any more than he's going to admit the use of Russian intelligence agencies to eliminate his political opponents.
I got to ask you about some reporting. Yahoo News right now reporting that a former State Department official claims there was a secret effort by the incoming Trump administration in the early days of their administration to drop sanctions on Russia that were put in place by former President Barack Obama. Obama holdovers were worried enough about this to then lobby Congress. You were there just a few days into the presidency. Do you know anything about this?
I don't know anything directly because I was, as you noted, only in my office for about 5 days after inauguration, which is when this effort apparently began. The sources quoted by Yahoo News and CNN are reliable sources, and they did exactly the right thing. was to ensure that such a major change in policy could not proceed in total darkness, but ought to be the subject of careful policy consideration, discussion with the White House, and informing Congress. Now, what it looks like from that article is that it was the fulfillment of what Michael Flynn appeared to promise the Russian ambassador in January, that the sanctions imposed by the United States would be rapidly lifted under the Trump administration. I think that fell apart for obvious reasons as Mr. Flynn's story unraveled. It does concern me that there is talk today that the administration does want to move even now to lifting sanctions, returning property, diplomatic property that Russia had used for spying purposes without getting anything for it from the Russian side. And that
CNN
is just
reporting
plain bad bargaining.
On that note, though, CNN is reporting there may be ongoing discussions about how they could work with the Russians to meet mutually beneficial purposes, including the reopening of those compounds, although that is not moving forward. And also important to know, we don't know the content of the discussion between Michael Flynn and the Russian ambassador, Sergei Kislyak. We have learned, though, through Sally Yates and others, that they discussed sanctions, although we don't know exactly what it was they discussed. So we are awaiting answers on that. Thomas Countryman, our thanks to you. And still ahead here in the newsroom, we have even more breaking news. The White House says the president will review whether he'll try to block James Comey from testifying next week about their private conversations. And a programming note, coverage of the hearing begins next Thursday at 9 a.m. Eastern. Watch on air, or you can stream it live on CNN.com.
Have you received a visit from the IRS? Are you being audited or have years of unfiled returns? Is your paycheck being garnished or bank accounts frozen? You may qualify for a special program to resolve your tax problem.
Community Tax is a good company, and they did a great job helping me. Their staff were all polite. I'm very pleased and happy with what they did. It was fantastic.
Community Tax is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau and has helped thousands of clients solve their tax problems. To receive a free consultation, call 1-800-444-1026 or visit communitytax.com.
People are talking about the new Buick. With 4 fresh new models to choose from. And what are they saying?
Your new Buick is so cute.
Love the new Buick. Does it do it?
Sweet Buick.
Experience the new Buick.
Get supplier discount pricing plus purchase cash on all 2017 Buick Envision Essence vehicles. That's over $5,500 total value on this Envision.
At Joseph A. Bank, save with our buy one, get one free sale and package specials. Our career package is just $249 for any executive suit, dress shirt, and tie. Plus our casual package, just $89 for any traveler sport shirt and twill pants. Only at Joseph A. Bank.
At Crown Plaza, we know business travel isn't just business. There's this. A bit of this. Why not? Your hotel should make it easy to do all the things you do, which is what we do. Crown Plaza. We're all business. Mostly.
When someone truly believes in you, you can achieve great things, like hitting the game-winning home run, or graduating first in your class. At Loan Depot, we believe in helping you achieve the American dream of owning a home.
Congratulations.
Loan Depot is the only lender that provides critical illness coverage which you can use to pay your mortgage payments, up to $30,000 in case you're unable to work. It's peace of mind when life gets difficult.
That's impressive.
And if interest rates ever drop, you can refinance with us at any time without paying any lender closing costs. So call, log on, or visit your local neighborhood branch today. There's no cost or obligation to see just how easy it is to get an approval for your home purchase. Put our nationwide team of over 6,000 to work for you. Loan Depot. We believe in you.
On the next Parts Unknown, Anthony Bourdain has been everywhere, but here.
It really is the end of the world.
Anthony Bourdain Parts Unknown, Antarctica, Sunday at 9 on CNN.
We know sacrifice. Across America, we give so others can get by. The Drug Price Relief Act calls on drug companies to take a step to lower prices on prescriptions for over 4 million Ohioans. The drug companies say no. Instead, they're running false ads, deceiving doctors and veterans to stop reform. I know, as a wounded veteran and the former administrator of Veterans Affairs, drug companies don't know sacrifice. But you and I do.
Do you owe money to the IRS?
My debt with the IRS had been going on for more than 10 years, and I knew they were going to come get me. The IRS just wouldn't work with me. Then Optima got involved, and I mean, they really got involved. No more phone calls, no more stress. They took care of me like no one else ever did. I knew I had a new beginning.
For your free consultation, call 1-800-488-6874. That's 1-800-488-6874.
Lead with Jay Tepper, up next on CNN.
Who says you can't go home again? It might be challenging if, like CNN's Bill Weir, you attended 17 schools in 6 different states. But he didn't let that stop him. Bill faced some complicated truths about his family's past and an emotional homecoming, one that revealed some surprising discoveries about the identity of our country in the age of Trump. Take a look.
Wanted, Sergeant Frank Miller, commander of the tactical squad. Crimes against the people. Conspiracy to violate the civil rights of black people, minority groups, general inability to function as a feeling member of the human race. While Milwaukee knew him as Sergeant Miller, I knew him as Grandpa. And I loved him dearly.
He was intimidating to a lot of people, but anybody who ever got to know him would realize he'd basically give the shirt off his back to you.
This is my Uncle Dan, Frank's youngest son.
He took his job very seriously. And if you broke the law or you committed a crime, he's got a job to do.
In my grandfather's memorabilia, I find a flip book of mugshots, including a 19-year-old named Prentice McKinney.
We come out there with love and with our hearts open and our minds open, you understand? We love everybody. They love it. I don't, get that straight, I don't love everybody. But when a bigot throws a brick at me, I don't love him, you understand? And when they send them wild dogs across that street, the bite me, I'm gonna cut his throat.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you this morning?
Oh, I'm old, but I'm here. Can't complain.
I feel the same way. He tells me the local paper once dubbed him Milwaukee's angriest young Negro. Today, the youth has passed, the anger has not. You recognize him?
Yeah. This picture captures him. Yeah, he was a real.
And his men?
Tac Squad was incorporated.
Bill Weir is joining us now to discuss this special report. Bill, even that clip, you get a sense of how personal this is to you and how eye-opening, I imagine, this journey was for you. It couldn't have been easy, though, to have these conversations.
Yeah, it was uncomfortable, but at the same time, you know, I moved around so much. I have all these friends and family in different quarters of our divided nation, and I thought, you know, you can only learn so much from a stranger in a diner. Why not try to talk to folks? And that story, my grandfather was a highly decorated cop in the civil rights era of Milwaukee. Prentice McKinney, a civil rights marcher who was scared to death of the police because it was brutal times and passed that resentment down through the generations. 50 years later, Milwaukee's still one of the most segregated places in the country. And it's Black Lives Matter versus the police. And so I just wanted to use that thread to examine how all of our little personal histories add up to the age of Donald Trump.
And did the answers you got in your conversations make a light bulb go off?
Totally. Again and again.
Yeah.
Again and again. I mean,
so it wasn't necessarily like what your preconceived notions were?
No, not at all. I mean, some friends voted for Gary Johnson. I never would have imagined, or Hillary supporters, and what I realized is we tend to think of ourselves as one nation of 50 states. We're really 11 distinct nations based on ethnic values and how they, traveled. And so the definition of liberty and justice for all is different in Greater Appalachia than it is in Yankeedom up here in Wisconsin. And it's a miracle we've kept it together. People bemoan, like, why can't we go back to a time when we were all singing Kumbaya? Because we never have. We've been fighting. This continent has been Game of Thrones since the first ships pulled up. People, very different values, trying to sort out what it means to be an American. And I think we're seeing that now more than ever.
Well, I look forward to your conversations and hearing more about
Thank
it.
you.
The search for common ground in the age of Trump. Bill Weir, thank you for being with us. And don't forget, tomorrow night at 9 Eastern here on CNN, Bill Weir and a panel of political experts and activists, they'll be there for a frank discussion on states of change. The Lead with Jake Tapper starts right now. I'm Ana Cabrera in New York. Thanks for being with us. Have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you back here tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern.
Thanks, Ana. President Trump's tweets, they may have undercut his ability to keep Comey quiet. The Lead starts right now. Fired FBI Director James Comey is set to testify with the world watching. Will President Trump invoke executive privilege to try to shut him up, or did Trump's itchy Twitter finger shoot holes in that possibility? Vladimir Putin calls the Russia investigation plain hysteria, but admits that some Russians may have meddled in the election. He calls them patriotic hackers, just doing their part for their motherland. Plus, conflict of interest watch. President Trump granting broad ethics waivers to top aides. How Steve Bannon might benefit to the detriment of Bannon's enemies, even those enemies within the White House. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to The Lead. I'm Jake Tapper. We begin today with the politics lead. The president's decision to take America out of the Paris Climate Agreement, not the only reason he's feeling heat today. We are now less than a week away from what might be the most anticipated congressional testimony since the Clarence Thomas hearings. On Thursday, the fired FBI Director, James Comey, will testify before the world about his private conversations with President Trump and whether the president's requests for information about the FBI investigation ever made him uncomfortable, and just what President Trump said to him about dropping the inquiry into the activities of Michael Flynn. Comey is set to testify as to all that unless President Trump successfully invokes executive privilege to keep Comey from testifying about those conversations. Though we should point out, legal experts say Trump's tweets and his public descriptions of those conversations make it much tougher for him to legally block Comey from offering his side of the story. CNN's Athena Jones starts us off with all the developments from the White House.
While President Trump and his allies are celebrating his decision to withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord,
our withdrawal from the agreement represents a reassertion of America's sovereignty.
reaction across the country and around the world has been swift and harsh. German Chancellor Angela Merkel calling it regrettable.
The position of the United States to step out of the Paris Climate Change Agreement is very regrettable.
And French President Emmanuel Macron even slamming the move in English.
We all share the same responsibility. Make our planet great again.
The worldwide response seemed to surprise the White House.
For some reason or another, this issue of climate change has emerged as a paramount issue for the left in this country and around the world.
Environmental Protection Agency Chief Scott Pruitt defending the move.
And the president made a very informed and I think thoughtful and important decision for the country's benefit.
Even as Democrats, from President Obama to former Vice President Al Gore to Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, blast the decision as reckless.
It's about the children and the responsibility we have to them.
Meanwhile, the governors of states like New York, California, and Washington have committed to upholding the Paris Agreement and taking aggressive action on climate change. The backlash growing, even as White House officials still refuse to say whether the president views climate change as real.
Does he believe global warming is a hoax?
He believes in clean air, clean water, a clean environment, and he believes that we have to negotiate better deals for this country.
Does President Trump still believe climate change is a hoax?
What President Trump believes is he was elected to grow the U.S. economy and provide great job opportunities for American citizens.
Does the president believe that climate change is real and a threat to the United States?
You know what's interesting about all the discussions we had through the last several weeks have been focused on one singular issue. Is Paris good or not for this country?
As the administration grapples with the fallout from its Paris decision, the president also considering whether to invoke executive privilege over his conversations with James Comey ahead of the former FBI director's testimony next week.
Is the White House going to invoke executive privilege? That committee hearing was just noticed, and I think obviously it's got to be reviewed.
So we're standing by for that decision. But on the point of what the president believes about climate change, it's been remarkable to see White House officials repeatedly unable to answer what seems like a simple question and an important one. White House counselor Kellyanne Conway even ended her exchange on the topic this morning by telling the anchor he should ask the president directly what he thinks about climate change. The problem with that, Jake, is that President Trump hasn't had a solo press conference since February. So there haven't been a lot of opportunities to pose any questions to him. Jay?
Athena Jones at the White House for us. Thanks so much. So just how much might Comey reveal when he testifies publicly on Thursday? After all, much of the investigation is classified. CNN's Jessica Schneider joins me now. Jessica, do we have any sense about what Comey is likely to say about his interactions with President Trump?
Well, Jake, we know from our sources that James Comey is eager to tell his story and testify. In fact, he's already consulted with special counsel Robert Mueller about the parameters of his testimony. And now a source tells CNN after some reflection on his interactions with the president, James Comey may be viewing the intent of the president a bit differently.
Tonight, new insight into how James Comey might recount his conversations with the president. A source with knowledge of Comey's thinking says that while Comey was disturbed by his interactions with President Trump, Comey believed he had the situation under control. The source says if Comey believed at the time any specific encounter constituted obstruction of justice, Comey would have done more than just write a memo. But when Comey pieces together the president's possible pressure to drop the FBI investigation into Michael Flynn in his testimony next week, the source thinks it's possible Comey could come to a different conclusion. The White House is now weighing whether to assert executive privilege to block Comey's testimony, though counselor to the president Kellyanne Conway indicated she expects Comey to talk.
We'll be watching with the rest of the world when Director Comey testifies by hundreds
So
of thousands.
not going to invoke executive privilege?
The president will make that decision.
Comey no longer works for the government, so the president can't order him to stay silent. And some say President Trump's tweets about Comey and declarations like these.
We had a very nice dinner. And at that time, he told me, you are not under investigation, which I knew anyway.
Waive the president's right. Others argue asserting executive privilege is necessary.
It sets a dangerous precedent that the president's conversations, private conversations can be revealed. It will be a he said type of thing. It is one side of the story. I don't think that helps the process.
And there are continuing questions about Jared Kushner's mid-December meeting with Russian bank chairman Sergei Gorkov, a man who has close ties to President Vladimir Putin. The White House insists Kushner conducted the meetings in his capacity during the transition. VEB Bank maintains it was part of their, quote, business roadshow. The meeting was arranged after Kushner met with Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak in early December at Trump Tower. In St. Petersburg Friday, President Putin defended the talks.
Our ambassador